Hi, my name is Harrison Conley, and if you're new here, I am a visual artist. I like doing these Flora kind of series of illustrations that combine objects from the natural world with ornate lines that create some sort of level of symbolism. Today I'm going to be walking you through a fun little illustration I did of this lotus-style flower with these lines that are going to be flowing in and out through the leaves, as well as this abstract font that I created to kind of bridge the visual gap between the lines and the flower itself. So if you like what you see, let's go ahead and hop into the process video. Okay, let's have some fun here. I think that's what's really great about doing this kind of illustration. It doesn't take too long, and it's just to capture a little bit of fun. And I think pictures that are drawn with such a meticulous nature are objectively beautiful, but lose a little whimsy that I kind of like to keep in all of my pieces. So I'm being quite loose on purpose here. I'm not trying to be a perfectionist. I'm really just doodling, for lack of a better word. So I think there's definitely going to be some good stuff happening in the second half of this video with some more detailing and personality of the flower coming out. But until then, let's just sit back and enjoy this pen, kind of dictate where it wants to go, and really just trying to fill in the whole silhouette of the flower rather than getting into any level of perfection. So let's just sit back and enjoy the playful nature of my doodles. So at this stage of the process, I'm not really spending too much time in any level of detailing, as I've already mentioned. I'm just getting the rough shapes kind of figured out. I'm covering the whole image and really trying to get something that looks kind of flat and solid on the pad so that I can push and pull in the next phase as we start getting into the intro level of detailing. I think it's also important to note that I'm not spending too much time going from leaf to leaf and making sure each leaf looks very perfect. I'm not staying in one lane or one zone of the flower for too long. I'm intentionally hopping around a little bit and just making sure that I'm covering the illustration as a whole flower as opposed to here's a leaf, then there's a leaf. So let's go ahead and hop back into the process video. Okay, so at this level of the illustration, I'm really starting to get into that mid-tier level of detail. I'm still very much in a state of play, but a little less than I was in the first phase. I'm not being too detailed about thin lines and where the meticulous nature of things are going to go, but I am starting to do the first little bit of push and pull with my eraser and my brush tool here in Procreate, and really just letting the flower in the process of pushing and pulling tell me kind of what its personality is. I think that's kind of heady, but I think when you sit here and draw a flower illustration for 2 hours straight, I think it's fun to be a little less tactile and practical about it and contemplate the fun personality nature of what it is you're drawing. And it makes the process more enjoyable for me, and it introduces a little bit of romance to the drawing that otherwise would just be a copy-paste tactile flower illustration. So yeah, I get to enjoy it for at least that reason. So at this phase in the process, I'm pretty happy with the way the flower looks so far. I'm not really trying to make it perfect. I think it's okay with me that we can look at this and it clearly is a flower. I think that's good enough for me. I think this next phase of introducing some of these lines are going to be really fun, and they are going to do a good job of grabbing your attention and pushing the flower back a little bit more. And you'll see here in a second in the time-lapse video that it'll be a fun little balance, creating the relationship between the lines and the flower. But for now, what we have here is a attractive flower, and I think that's good enough for me. So let's go ahead and hop into the process video again. Okay, now I am getting to do the fun part of introducing my line art over this flower. This first line is always the most important piece. It's the line that all the other lines are either going to be flowing next to or attached to. It's almost like the root, the stem line. So it's a little bit of a process to figure out which first line do I want. Do I want a curve? Do I want a short straight guy? I decided for a short straight one for this piece. What I like most about doing the line work is there's not so much of a push and pull like there is when I'm doing the flower illustrations, mostly because the lines are kind of acting as the extroverts of the piece, where what you draw is what they are. You only kind of get one shot. So that's why you see me doing just kind of one take for each line, and either it looks good and I keep it, or I undo and start over. So I think the lines being an extrovert of the piece is a good example of how both the illustration and the lines act as a relationship, where the flower is much more of the introvert, being a darker color and in the background, whereas the lines are definitely the piece that grab your attention first and then introduce you to the introvert, like all good extroverts do. So I think it's important that they establish a relationship, but we just keep it a healthy relationship where they're not competing with one another, but are working beautifully together. So now I'm working on a fun kind of made up abstract font to kind of bring the flower and the lines together. I like doing this kind of font treatment because I have a background in graphic design, and I really enjoy the function that weird typography can bring to a piece. And I really think adding this kind of font treatment makes this just very simple flower illustration become maybe a little something more. It introduces a level of symbolism to the piece that I enjoy when I go walking in the natural world and I go out hiking in nature, seeing that level of symbolism, that intention that we don't quite understand. It might not be legible, but nonetheless it's beautiful, and that's kind of what the font represents for this piece. If at the end of the day you look at this and you just see a beautiful flower, I think that's okay, but also I hope you see that there's some intention behind the piece more than just, here's a pretty flower. This was a fun illustration to create. I think I enjoyed really sitting down for 2 hours, pulling up my reference, and just enjoying the process of illustrating this flower, throwing in some lines, making up a font, and then calling it a day. If you really like these kind of videos, I plan on doing more of these Flora process time-lapse videos in the future. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.